they have some real problems, the Russian military.
Our top story tonight is about the Russia-Ukraine war. There is a major turning point. Russian troops are in the process of withdrawing from the Ukrainian city of Kherson. It is a crucial city in this war, and withdrawing from here is being seen as a major setback for Russia. But what led to this? How did things reach this point? Why has Russia decided to retreat, and why now? This is our top focus on Gravitas tonight. Our cover story tonight is from Ukraine, the Ukrainian city of Kherson to be precise. In March this year, the city came under Russian occupation. 8 months on, Russia has decided to end the occupation. As I speak, Russian troops are in the process of withdrawing from Kherson. But why? Because they have been ordered to. The Russian commander in Ukraine has asked all troops to retreat. He says it is no longer possible to keep supplying the city. Listen to this.
The Russian armed forces continue their special military operation. Russian troops are conducting maneuvers to prepared positions on the left bank of the Dnipro River in strict accordance with the approved plan.
Now, this may just be one of Russia's biggest retreats in the war, and a humiliating one at that. There is no other way for Moscow to depict this withdrawal as anything other than an embarrassing setback. And here is why I say this. Kherson is one of Ukraine's most strategic port cities. It is home to a major shipbuilding industry, besides being a regional economic center. When Russia captured it, it called the annexation a step towards liberating Kherson. It said the city would remain Russian territory forever. In fact, back in April, Russia's puppet government in Kherson had stated that Kherson would switch to Russian currency. It also said, and I'm quoting, reintegrating the Kherson region back into a Nazi Ukraine is out of the question. And this was in April. In the month of June, Russian FSB officials moved into apartments that were vacated by fleeing Ukrainian citizens. And the same month, Russia opened banks in Kherson, further signaling the region was theirs to run. 4 months on, the same Russia is withdrawing its troops. What explains this? It's hard to tell, but an easy answer could be the Ukrainian counter-offensive. In the last couple of weeks, Ukraine has made significant advances. It has driven back Russian forces and recaptured several cities like Izium and Kupiansk, to name a few. In recent days, they were also spotted advancing towards Kherson. In fact, around the time Russia announced its withdrawal, this video emerged. It showed Ukrainian soldiers on a highway just 30 kilometers northwest from Kherson. A soldier in the video can be seen holding a Ukrainian flag. He goes on to say that his brigade had broken Russia's line of defense and was advancing towards Kherson.
Dear Ukrainians, we are advancing in the direction of Kherson. Glory to Ukraine. The 28th Separate Mechanized Brigade, the first defense line of the enemy, is already ours. Glory to Ukraine.
Now, here's the thing. The Russian withdrawal may be good news for the Ukrainians, but there are still several reasons for them to be cautious. First of all, there is a high possibility that retreating Russian forces may have most likely left behind traps for Ukrainians. Secondly, now that Russia is withdrawing its troops from Kherson, now that its forces will no longer be stationed in the city, it will be more tempted to bombard Kherson at will. Ukrainian officials are aware of this and they are reacting with skepticism. This is what an advisor to the Ukrainian president recently said. Actions speak louder than words. We see no signs that Russia is leaving Kherson without a fight. Meaning Russia's announcement should be taken with a heap of salt. For all you know, this announcement could be aimed at inflicting more damage on the Ukrainian forces. Now, these are all possibilities, but the fact of the matter is that Russia is pulling back, whatever be its intentions. On the face of it, the decision makes Moscow look weak, and the world is reacting along the same lines. Take Joe Biden, for instance. The American president recently said that Russia's withdrawal from Kherson shows that the Russian military is facing some real problems. Listen in.
First of all, I found it interesting they waited till after the election to make that judgment, and which we knew for some time that they were going to be doing. And it's evidence of the fact that they have some real problems, the Russian military, number one. Number two, whether or not that leads to, at a minimum, it will lead to time for everyone to recalibrate their positions over the winter period.
Now, America is trying its best to sell it as an embarrassment, and the actions of the Russian president are not helping. Vladimir Putin has decided to not attend the G20 summit. It is scheduled to be held in Indonesia next week, and Putin is not going. There is no word either on whether he will be joining the summit virtually. Now, what explains this? Is he trying to avoid being confronted or shunned by world leaders? Or is Russia too embarrassed with its retreat from Kherson? It's hard to tell, but Putin's decision to not be there, especially after this retreat from Kherson, will only add to the growing claims that Russia is on a weak footing. Let's now turn our attention to China. Xi Jinping began a record third term last month. He stacked up his inner circle with loyalists. There is no clear successor in picture too. Xi Jinping is in total control. He holds all the powerful posts within the government and the Communist Party. But he still seems to be paranoid. This week, President Xi addressed the People's Liberation Army, or the PLA. The Chinese mouthpieces reported about this. There are photographs as well. That is Xi Jinping dressed in military fatigue. What did he tell the PLA? I'm quoting, "China's security has been increasingly unstable and uncertain." That is what Xi Jinping was heard as saying. The Chinese president told the PLA to prepare for war. Now, you may have heard Xi Jinping say similar things in the past. Then why is this statement worth paying attention to this time? Let's begin by taking a step back. Like I said before, the instruction, prepare for war, is not new. After rising to power, Xi Jinping has put greater emphasis on combat readiness. In 2013, he ordered the Chinese army to focus on war preparation, perhaps for the first time. And in 2016, he visited a PLA command center, and there he told the officers to be loyal, resourceful, courageous, and capable of winning wars. A year later, in 2017, he once again sent out the same message, prepare for war, he told the Chinese military. But this messaging, that too in military fatigue, seems different this time. He has sharpened his rhetoric. I have some quotes for you. Focus all your energy on fighting. Work hard on fighting. Improve your capability to win. And resolutely defend national sovereignty and national security. Why the sudden emphasis on war preparation? Last month, the Chinese president himself gave out some clues.
The resolution of the Taiwan issue is a matter of the Chinese ourselves to decide. We insist on striving for the prospect of peaceful reunification with the greatest sincerity and with the greatest effort. However, we are not committed to abandoning the use of force, and we reserve the option of taking all necessary measures.
Yes, this is about Taiwan. In October, the Chinese president refused to rule out the use of force to take the island. Taiwan is a clear priority for Xi Jinping. He brought up Taiwan again. In a report, it was distributed to the Communist Party members during the Congress last month. What did the report say? Xi Jinping warned about dangerous storms that China could face and the need to stay prepared. Again, a reference that hints at the need for military preparedness. In the same breath, the Chinese president took swipes at America. This is for Washington's continued support for Taiwan's independence. Xi Jinping terms this support as external interference and a gross provocation. The Chinese president sees American involvement as a threat, and that's why Xi Jinping is asking his military to prepare for war. Maybe he believes that a clash is inevitable. So Xi Jinping has set out some targets for the PLA. And what are these targets? I have a list. Xi Jinping wants the PLA to accelerate troop training, modernize the organization, normalize the use of military power, be prepared to stage military operations, and ultimately gain the ability to win regional wars. Those are the goals that the PLA now needs to achieve. Xi Jinping wants a powerful military to double down on his territorial claims. But what about his problems back at home? What about China's economic troubles and the repeated COVID-19 flare-ups? New infections are rising again. New cases are at their highest since April this year. The southern metropolis of Guangzhou is the latest hotspot. No lockdowns yet, but residents have been advised to work from home. Most of the 11 districts of Guangzhou are under some form of restrictions. This impacts more than 5 million people who live there. Fresh infections are flaring up in Beijing as well. Most residents there are now required to take a COVID-19 test every 24 hours. The pandemic started more than 2 years ago, but China remains trapped by its zero COVID policies, while its leader chases military dominance. The Chinese citizens are paying the price for Xi Jinping's misplaced priorities. We earlier discussed Russia's withdrawal from Kherson. Ukraine's gains in the battlefield are partly due to American support. The US has supported Ukrainian forces with ample firepower. However, on the diplomatic front, the US has faced some challenges. It has struggled to rope in more allies against Russia. Washington is now taking a new approach to woo more friends. On Friday, the US Treasury Secretary will be in India. The Treasury Department has put out a statement. It says Yellen will highlight the strength of America's partnership with India. In New Delhi, she will be meeting business leaders, followed by bilateral engagements with her Indian counterpart, the Finance Minister, Nirmala Sitharaman. So Yellen's agenda makes no mention of Russia, but that does not mean it will not come up. America is being careful this time, however, especially on the issue of India's purchases of Russian oil. A US Treasury official has spoken out. America does not want to dissuade India from buying Russian crude. Yellen will not insist that India should condemn Russia for the invasion. Neither is she expected to question the Russian oil purchases. Instead, Yellen believes India could get more benefits when it buys the next consignment of Russian oil. What is this all about? The proposal of a price cap on Russian crude. G7 countries alongside Australia are discussing this. The details could be revealed soon, and Yellen thinks India can benefit from this proposal. Here is what she said ahead of her visit to India. Our objective is to hold down the price that Russia receives for its oil and keep that oil trading. The gainers from this will be particularly those countries that do buy cheap Russian oil, and our hope would be that India would take advantage of this price cap, though its firms are bargaining with Russia. New Delhi has already made its position clear. India will not stop buying Russian oil anytime soon.
It is our fundamental obligation to ensure that the Indian consumer has the best possible access on the most advantageous terms to international markets. And in that respect, quite honestly, we have seen that the India-Russia relationship has worked to advantage. So if it works to my advantage, I would like to keep that going.
The US wants to keep India close. That is the main goal for the Biden administration. US President Joe Biden had said this himself. I'll now quote from his statement in May. I am committed to making the US-India partnership among the closest we have on earth. That is how Yellen also would like to approach her engagements with India. Focus more on similarities while ignoring the differences. Yellen tried to set the tone for her engagements in India. Again, I'm quoting, there will be topics on our agenda for meetings. For example, climate change will be very important. We are both concerned about debt sustainability. A large number of low and middle income countries in this difficult global environment are encountering problems of unsustainable debt. That could be a reference to the situation in Sri Lanka. In the past, Yellen had assured support to Colombo for debt restructuring. India has played a key role in stabilizing Sri Lanka through bilateral loans. So there is scope for the US and India to coordinate their efforts. Yellen also plans to discuss India's G20 presidency. Her engagements in India begin tomorrow, and we will be keeping a track of those updates. And our next story is from the United States, where at least 4 Indian origin men and women have been elected to the Congress following the midterm polls. Who are these politicians, and what should people watching this show from India expect from these members of the Congress, if at all? Our next report telling you.
Over 4 million people of Indian origin live in the United States, which is a country of around 335 million. So it makes sense that when this country goes to polls to choose its political representatives, there will be people of Indian origin who will enter the big offices. On the 8th of November, the United States held midterm polls. 4 Indian Americans have been elected to the House of Representatives. All are Democrats. Meet Shri Thanedar. He is the first Indian American to win congressional elections from Michigan. Thanedar is 67, and his is a rags-to-riches story. Thanedar grew up in Karnataka before taking up a job at the Bhabha Atomic Research Center as a scientist. Thanedar was working as a janitor to support his family and his studies. He arrived in the US in the 70s with the hope to become a businessman. Thanedar hopes America will have a strong relationship with other democratic countries, including India. This is Raja Krishnamurthy. Some of you may recognize him. Krishnamurthy has been serving in the House of Representatives for a while now. And in the midterms he was re-elected for his 4th consecutive term. Krishnamurthy is 49 and he represents the 8th Congressional District of Illinois. He was born in New Delhi. He grew up in Pretoria, went on to study in Princeton before receiving his Juris Doctor from Harvard Law School. Then there is Ro Khanna. He too was re-elected into the House of Representatives. Khanna entered the Congress in 2016. Representing California's 17th district, which covers much of Silicon Valley. Before making a foray into politics, Khanna was a lecturer of economics at Stanford University. He was born in Philadelphia to an Indian family. His parents had immigrated from Punjab. Khanna's father is a graduate from the Indian Institute of Technology. On his website, Khanna says that his commitment to public service is rooted in the belief that the American dream that inspired his family should continue to inspire future generations. Here's another Indian American who has won her 4th term in the House of Representatives, Pramila Jayapal. She was born in Chennai. She spent her childhood in Indonesia and Singapore before immigrating to the United States to attend college. Jayapal went to Georgetown before getting her MBA from Kellogg. Jayapal was elected to the Congress in 2016 from Washington's 7th District, which encompasses most of Seattle and its adjoining areas. She is the first South Asian American woman elected to the U.S. House of Representatives. What does Jayapal, Khanna, Krishnamurthy and Thanedar's victory mean for India? Not much, actually. Having a person of Indian origin at a high office is of course a display of soft power, but that's about it. Indian origin or not, a person elected to the U.S. Congress is expected to work for those living in the U.S. It's them who these politicians are answerable to. So, naturally, it's the electorate's welfare, these politicians prioritize.
Our next story is about Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. He is set to visit Pakistan. What is this visit all about? Let's find out. First things first, when will he be visiting Pakistan? On the 21st of November. Reports say Prince Salman's special security detail will arrive in Islamabad by this weekend and review the security arrangements for final approval. Next question, why is he visiting Pakistan? Why else but to make investments and grant financial aid? Reports say the Crown Prince could likely announce a $4.2 billion aid package for Pakistan. This is in addition to the various bailout packages Riyadh has granted to Islamabad in the last 2 years. The latest bailout package would also include additional reserves worth $3 billion. And what sort of investments will he be making? To start with, he could announce wide-ranging MOUs worth at least $10 billion. What will these MOUs cover? Mostly petroleum deals and development projects. Remember, for quite some time, there have been reports that Riyadh plans to establish an oil refinery in Pakistan. Where exactly? In the port city of Gwadar. According to reports, Gwadar could get a state-of-the-art deep conversion refinery along with a petrochemical complex. Analysts are calling it a potentially revolutionary step for Pakistan's economy and its dependence on the import of petroleum products. They expect this oil refinery to make Pakistan self-sufficient in the production of petrochemical products by 2028. Now, we hope that trust is not misplaced. Besides this, the Crown Prince could also announce investment for a $5 million motorway in Nowshera, a $500 million agreement for the construction of King Salman Hospital in Islamabad, and an estimated $70 million science park at an engineering university in Karachi. Now, that's a lot of money. The question is, what is Riyadh expecting in return? Is it expecting anything at all? Now, to be honest, there is nothing much Pakistan can give in return, besides, of course, sending cheap labor to the kingdom. So these investments are at best a goodwill gesture, a gesture of support to the Shehbaz Sharif government, which is facing tremendous challenges at home. That said, Shehbaz Sharif does know a thing or two about diplomacy. Case in point, his government's stance on the Saudi-US diplomatic spat, a spat over Riyadh's refusal to ramp up oil supplies for the West. Pakistan made a surprising yet significant move and publicly backed Riyadh's position on this. This is what the country's foreign ministry said last month. I'm quoting. In the wake of statements made against the kingdom in the context of OPEC Plus decision, Pakistan expresses solidarity with the leadership of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. This was last month. A month on, the Saudi Crown Prince is coming to Pakistan with money, a gesture of support for Pakistan's loyalty. And that said, the Crown Prince does not want to make a show of it, given the kind of political mess that Pakistan is in. The country's former Prime Minister is rallying his supporters on the streets, trying to force the government to hold elections. The public support seems to be with him. They want Shehbaz Sharif to be dethroned. Given such circumstances, Saudi Arabia is trying to keep the details of the visit under the wraps. In fact, reports say that the Saudi Crown Prince will not even stay the night during his visit. Remember, in all his previous visits to Pakistan, he has spent a day or two in Islamabad. This time, he reportedly may not. Observers say this signals the Crown Prince's unwillingness to associate himself with the current dispensation. Let's now shift our focus to the Twitterverse. One word to describe what's happening there: chaos. The new Twitter CEO, Elon Musk, has rolled out a paid verification system, and the results have been comical, even alarming. Our next report telling you more.
It has happened. Twitter has started accepting payments for blue ticks, and this is the outcome. There is a blue-ticked Nintendo of America account making an unmentionable gesture, and apparent LeBron James asking to leave the Lakers. The account has a blue tick, and that's not the actual LeBron James. Look at the username, King James with a Z instead of an S. One letter change caused panic among LeBron fans. How many times are you going to double-check an account's name to know if you are being scammed? If you have to do that for every post, why trust anything at all? Let's look at a series of tweets by Twitter's new owner. Here's a tweet from the 1st of the month. He says he wants to remove inequality. But it was a system of blue ticks put in place to impose inequality. No, it was to verify users. It has not been the most accurate or transparent system, but blue verification ticks helped. Imagine an enemy nation making a blue tick account with a diplomat's name. This is what the head of trust and safety at Twitter had to say. They will rely on mobile manufacturers and payment platforms, but they admit sophisticated adversaries may get around this. And that is not reassuring in a world full of hackers. Twitter is trying to find ways around the mess that it has created. If you hover over the blue ticks, you find out how the account got it. If it's an older verified account or a bot tick mark. Twitter even debuted a grey tick on Wednesday. It was supposed to be for government accounts, companies and some others, but then Musk killed it in a few hours. Twitter then announced it will be going after fake accounts. Elon Musk is clearly trying out different ways to overhaul Twitter. Now he has shared another detailed vision for the company. Twitter may enter the payments market. The idea was discussed during a live stream meeting with Twitter advertisers. They could move their money out of Twitter by transferring it to an authenticated bank account. Imagine in the times to come you could be dealing with money on Twitter. In fact, a media report has also hinted at such moves. The report says that Twitter last week had filed the registration paperwork that would allow it to process payments. We know a business needs to register with the government before it can conduct money transfers, exchange currency or cash checks. We also know that Elon Musk has been pushing to make money from Twitter. Be it the paid verification model that requires a payment of $8 a month, or the paywalled video feature that would allow creators to charge for access to their content. Musk believes the new ecosystem could pave the way for a payment system on its platform. And that's not all. In the longer term, Musk may establish bank accounts on Twitter's platform and pay a high interest rate to attract users. The move to enter the payments business could be linked to Musk's larger plan to turn Twitter into an everything app. For now, there's a long way to go before that happens.
Let me ask you a question now. Do you feel safe living in your city? Do you feel safe walking back home, say at 1 a.m. at night? In some parts of the world, it is commonplace for friends to tell each other to drop a message when they reach home. It's a mix of concern for safety and fear for our loved ones. But are these feelings universal? Do people worldwide feel the need to share their app cab details so that their loved ones can track them? Gallup recently published a report. It found that Afghans are the least likely in the world to feel safe. Just 22% of the Afghans say they feel safe walking alone at night. In Singapore, it's the opposite. 95% of the people living in Singapore feel safe. Gallup concludes that in Singapore, people feel the safest walking alone. It's followed by Norway, where 93% people feel safe walking alone. And then comes Tajikistan, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Slovenia, Switzerland, Egypt, Denmark, and Jordan. It's a diverse grouping of democracies, monarchies. Experts say that it is mostly in economically developed countries and territories with strong rule of law that people feel safe walking alone at night. Now, on the other side of the table is Afghanistan, where, like I mentioned, only 22% feel safe to walk alone at night. Also on the list of the least safe countries are Ecuador, Namibia, Zambia, Republic of the Congo, Dominican Republic, Gabon, Venezuela, and South Africa. Now the question is, what makes people feel unsafe? Firstly, their city/country's crime records. One would obviously be scared to venture out at 1 a.m. if she knows the streets are prone to robbery, theft, or even worse. One would be scared to walk home alone at night if she knows it is not unusual for women to disappear only to be found days later, dead at some riverbank. People would also be scared to venture out alone at night if they don't trust the police with maintaining law and order. And guess what? Only 70% of people worldwide have confidence in their local police. The number dips to 51% in Latin America and the Caribbean. East Asia, on the other hand, has been presented as the most secure, followed by Southeast Asia, West Europe, the US, and Canada. And talking about safety, scientists have warned there are high chances of a strong earthquake striking the Himalayan region. Why is this region prone to earthquakes? How prepared is it to deal with them? Our next report getting you the details.
In the wee hours of Wednesday, a strong 6.6 magnitude earthquake jolted the remote mountainous region of western Nepal. 6 people lost their lives. Tremors were felt across North India, including the Himalayan state of Uttarakhand. The same day, scientists issued a warning. They say there is a strong possibility of a major earthquake in the Himalayan region. First things first, why do earthquakes occur? Let's talk about the Himalayas in particular and how they came into existence because of collision between Indian and Eurasian plates. Because of the pressure of the Eurasian plate on the Indian plate, the strained energy under it makes its presence felt through earthquakes. The Himalayan region is prone to these tremors. It is repeatedly hit by earthquakes. Some major ones include the Kangra earthquake of 1905, the Kinnaur earthquake of 1975, the Uttarkashi earthquake of 1991 and the Chamoli earthquake of 1999, and the Nepal earthquake in 2015. But what can be done to protect ourselves? In one word, prepare. Given how earthquakes are unpredictable, we need to be better prepared so that the damage to life and property can be minimized. How exactly? One way to do that is to make constructions earthquake resistant. But given the costs and infrastructure involved, that's not always possible. Earthquake observatories have already been set up in Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand to help monitor seismic movements. Mock drills should be conducted at least once every year, like in Japan. And then there is also the need to delineate active faults and ensure major infrastructure is not built near them. If such infrastructure is built, it has to be done according to the Bureau of Indian Standard Guidelines. So to sum it up, better preparedness and safety measures and help minimize the loss to life and property.
The COP27 is underway in Egypt. World leaders converge to discuss and come up with effective strategies to limit global warming and carbon emissions. This as Egypt is battling multiple climate-related crises. In the latest, Farmers are now turning to solar power to reduce farming costs and emissions. Take a look at our next report to find out more.
Climate change and its impact is evident in Egypt, particularly on the Nile River. Once worshipped, the Nile now faces existential threat, a water source that 10 countries rely on for their irrigation systems, drinking water needs and power. With the Nile at risk and rising energy costs, farmers in the delta are now turning to solar power.
Many places here are out of the reach of the electricity grid, so farmers depend on diesel fuel, which is really hard to get. As it costs a lot of money, we are talking about a huge amount of fuel, not just a few liters, as the land needs huge amounts of water, which in turn requires a lot of fuel. Additionally, the machine needs new oil every 100 operating hours, not to mention maintenance fees. This is why farmers are turning to solar energy.
Solar energy is proving to be an effective and successful solution. It has helped not just reduce the operational costs, but also contributes to lowering CO2 emissions. That being said, many farmers do not have the resources and the funds to install solar panels, and this is where the UN-financed solar panels have come in handy.
Most farmers in Egypt irrigate their lands by raising water from canals using motors, which consume a lot of energy and leads to increased CO2 emissions, which we try to reduce.
Every year for the past 6 years, the Mediterranean has eaten away between 35 and 75 meters of the Nile Delta. Over 500 million people rely on the Nile. But climate change, human intervention, exploitation and pollution have put the Nile at risk. According to reports, the flow of Nile could reduce by 70% by the end of the century. Needless to say that this has raised concerns, and Egypt is feeling the pressure to rethink its climate goals. Under Egypt's 2030 vision, the government intends to increase the supply of electricity generated from renewable sources to 42% by 2035. With COP27 underway in Egypt this time, there will be strong focus on the need for damage and loss payments by rich countries. It remains to be seen if rich countries with significantly higher emissions will unite on decarbonization goals, and if they will help developing nations that have faced disproportionate impacts of climate change. Bureau Report, World of Africa.
Let's now tell you what else made news around the world. Time for Gravitas Global Headlines.
Iran claims to have developed a hypersonic missile capable of penetrating all defense systems, but there have been no reports of such a missile being tested by Iran. Lebanon's divided parliament fails to elect a new president for the 5th time, with the post lying vacant since the mandate of Michel Aoun expired last month. The EU proposes 2 action plans to address the deteriorating security situation following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, to bolster cyber defense and to allow armed forces to move faster and better across borders. Commuters in London and Paris scramble for alternatives as public transport workers go on strike for higher pay. The latest industrial action seeking relief from soaring prices in Europe. At least 10 people are killed in a devastating fire in the Maldivian capital, Malé. Authorities say 9 Indians are among those dead. The fire broke out in cramped lodgings of foreign workers. Hurricane Nicole makes landfall in U.S. state of Florida. The Category 1 hurricane is packing sustained winds with speed up to 120 kilometers per hour. Cryptocurrencies crash across the board after Binance's deal to rescue FTX collapses. Crypto king Bitcoin is down nearly 10%, while Ethereum is down 9%. ODI World Champions England booked their place in the finals of the ICC Men's T20 World Cup final, following a 10-wicket victory over India in the second semi-final. chasing 169 openers, Alex Hales and Jos Buttler stitched the highest opening partnership in T20 World Cup history, as they overhauled the target with 4 overs to spare. Midfielder Mario Götze, who scored the winning goal in the 2014 World Cup final against Argentina, has been named in Germany's World Cup squad. The 30-year-old makes a return to the international fold after a 5-year absence. Borussia Dortmund's 17-year-old striker Youssoufa Moukoko has also been included in the 4-time champions' 26-man squad.
With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas, leaving you with Gravitas Images. Thanks very much for watching.
Має цю єбану підарську тряпку, сука, смердючу. Давай, брат, рви її нахуй. 9 листопада, один з самих важких днів. Один з самих гарних закатів.
Malam siapa damai